Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about love,
sex,
connection,
abundance,
joy,
purpose,
peace,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves. All right, so we're going to talk about love and magic again.
Yes. Two of your favorite things, right?
I mean, literally, they are my two of my favorite things. Hence, all my other books.
But maybe this is why, Rhea, we have this season. I'm just happy we can make you happy. So love is meant to be joyful. It is literally light. It is us shining our light. We're living in light. And it is very powerful, right? As we know, when we are at our greatest love, we are powerful. But because of our wiring for separation, it can take us a lot to burn out that separation. So by the time we really get into love, we could be a bit tired.
Yeah. Well, just to recap, because this is an entirely different season about love and magic. Love, the way we were taught it in separation, was becoming separate from ourselves, right? So you play games, you manipulate, you chase, you look to the other person to save you. You know, someone bestows upon you their love, therefore you are good enough. All those kind of things, even to the point of like how we commit to someone, how we sacrifice for someone, what it means to be responsible for someone. All of those things lead us to a place where I cannot be free in my light and you cannot be free in yours, and we can share it together. Instead, it's very much a kind of like one of us will source the other one, and then vice versa. Through the karmic undoing process, through understanding what love is, true love is and isn't, we can kind of come to understand that love is shining our light. It's bringing joy. It's sharing who we really are. And it's showing up for ourselves. And in doing so, showing up for the other. And the one thing that you kind of talk about quite a lot, which I just talk about slightly differently, is that kind of I, thou. I see the divine in me, therefore I see the divine in you. I honor myself. I am committed to myself. I shine my light, therefore I make space for you to shine yours. And we've discussed it in this season as well, but it just takes a lot to burn through all the shit that we've thought about love. And even me, who's like obsessed with it and writes about it and lives in it as much as she possibly can, it took a while after coming out of my karma. It took a while after me coming out of everything to really see all the ways in which separation had molded my views of love to the point where it was almost keeping me out of it. And it got me thinking, because if love is shining our light and love underpins magic, the idea that we can get to magic before we get to capital L love, as in the shining our light idea, that can't be, right? No, so when I go online and I see influencers or people talking about, you know, quantum leaping or changing your circumstances, like letting things line up magically, or all the things that they talk about with when it comes to magic. But then they're also in the same breath talking about, and that's how you get the guy of your dreams, or that's how he texts you back, or you can move your timeline so that you're with him finally. I'm looking at that and I was like, well, that can't work, because on one side you've got the like separation-y love in there, which is I have to force this person to show up for me and manipulate them to show up for me, and etc. And then on the other side is let's use magic. And I'm like, wait a second, what? This doesn't make, because effectively that means that you're not understanding the karmic undoing process, right? You're not understanding what it really means to connect to your heart and then operate from a place of your heart
and come into your power.
Which is all those things that you need to actually practice magic. And second of all those synchronicities and all those unfoldings, just like we've discussed in a previous episode in this season, that's fate. That's not magic.
No, it's not magic at all.
So we're attributing magic to something that's not magical at all, because for me anyway, although I know that this is more fate than magic, when you choose someone from that light place and they choose you from that light place, that's what can feel magical. Yeah. Right? And when two people come together from there, then the experiences that you can have together may include magic. But it feels like from everything that we've done so far in the season, what keeps us out of magic, and what definitely kept me out of magic, was how I misunderstood love, fate, and purpose.
Yeah.
Love can't be for someone else.
And really can't,
And fate, as you discussed in a previous episode as well in this season, our fates don't touch. They sit next to, which reminds me of this thing that I once heard that makes a lot of sense to me is that, when it comes to partnership, relationships in this kind of love place, you're looking for someone to walk alongside you, not to lead you or to follow you. And that's like kind of similar. And then when you look at purpose, which links into that, it's I am expressing my joy in all the ways in which I express it. So let's say I am expressing my joy in country X, and the person that I want to be with is in country Y. I cannot use magic to make them want to move. I cannot use magic to make them choose me. I cannot use magic to make them text me back. I mean, I feel like we've discussed this in a previous episode, like with enchantments and stuff like that, you can maybe cross their mind, but you can never violate the will of another unless, as you discussed in the dark arts episode when we mentioned it briefly, unless you're giving away a part of yourself, which means that's not magic either. That's dark shit.
Yes, very much. So, because what you're talking about is where we're often, and this happens a lot, and I have said this before when we were in our karmic series and all of those seasons, a lot of these influencers and healers keep putting the cart before the horse.
Like gratitude, right?
Yeah.
That's the easiest one to understand because when you're happy, you're naturally grateful. So trying to force yourself to be grateful when you're not actually grateful allows you to actually skip all the bits that make you unhappy, but they're not going anywhere because you're not facing
exactly.
them.
You're just really overlaying your very bleak reality with a false one, with just another illusion. Yeah. And while it might be that there are elements in our lives to be grateful for, right, that are really nice and we're silver lining everything, until we take care of the stuff that is less nice, those don't go away. And one cannot make up or compensate for the other, no matter how much power we give it. And again, we just keep flinging our power out as opposed to retaining it.
What do you mean by that? Because I remember that was once said to me and I never understood it fully.
Oh, in your case, it's different. I think for you, flinging out your power was just giving your energy over. Like, you're almost dismissing it. For you, it was a case of, I'm just going to I'm not going to work with it. I'm just going to, you constantly downplay it. It was just really odd, just the way you were operating. In this case, for the example of gratitude, which I think is a really good one, what you're doing is you're constantly giving your power over to that positivity, the power of positivity. So rather than retaining it, you're so saying, focused.
This doesn't work. This is what I want.
Yes.
This isn't what I want. You're saying, oh, well, my power means nothing. What I want doesn't mean anything.
Precisely. So then we go from the power of positivity to giving all of our power to negativity. So we just keep reducing and diminishing it. Yeah. And in the process, we diminish our consciousness, which is really beside the point. It's really just not the goal, right? So what underpins all of these elements that you talked about, love, fate, purpose, is desire.
Which is the best.
It really is. But can a lot of people really answer the question, what do we desire?
Well, no, because most people are still stuck in what do I want? We're so focused on what we think will make us happy that we don't actually allow ourselves to think what will actually make us happy. Mm-hmm. And the desire for me is a much more full-bodied experience, whereas wanting in that way is much more mental. If I do X, then Y happens. And I want Y, so therefore I want X first.
Yes, it's very outcome-based.
Yeah, whereas desire is just this, I can't explain how I'm going to get it or why I want it, but I just know in every fiber of my being I want this. And I find that desire is almost bigger because want is very, very specific to the point where the conditions attached to it make it almost impossible to recreate.
Yeah, that's very well said.
I thought that relationships had to unfold a specific way, had to be a specific way. They had to look a specific way. The person I was with had to be a specific kind of person, all those things. But ultimately, what underpinned all of that was the desire for connection, the desire for intimacy, the desire for desire, right? All of those things. And once I focused on that and allowed that to be the driving force, everything else kind of fell by the wayside because I was able to see what it really looked like for me and what served me. And what I've discovered is that often how it shows up is far more suited to you than what you thought would be suited to you.
Which I love because in the end, that's an expression of divine consciousness.
Oh,
just
God.
had to work that one in there. I totally ruined it, didn't I?
Why is it an expression of divine consciousness?
What you identified was, I really wanted connection. Because a lot of people stay on the surface with those types of desires, whether it's around another person or it's around a particular job or career choice, whatever it is. A lot of people stay very surface about it. And even if it's like, I just want to feel good and valued, that's still almost like karmic expression. But like you said, as you started to as things fell by the wayside, when you started to identify, I want connection, that starts to go deeper.
That starts deeper rather than higher.
Exactly. That starts to open new pathways of experiencing.
Well, then I also started having loads of new experiences because, I said this to you previously, that I always had a very strict idea of how one connects with another, especially in the romantic realm. And there were a lot of rules around it. And whether or not I was conscious that I had those rules, I did, So the more I started focusing on the connection part, first of all, I realized that the kind of people I thought that suited me maybe didn't necessarily. But more than that, I started realizing by allowing that, I started having all these other experiences that I never would have probably allowed myself to have. And I don't just mean like going to a different restaurant or things like that. It means I really allowed myself to see another. And that, I don't think I would have ever given myself the chance to do if I'd stayed within what I thought I wanted or even what I thought I desired. I'll say this much. When I did connect from that space and therefore had that connection, it was because I was shining my light, which means for me in this instance, as said in the books, I was making choices but from trust, faith, hope, and knowing. I was following my heart. I was listening. I was using all my consciousness from higher to physical. I was using all of it to make those choices, which meant that everything I did was shining my light, right? That's why we say that trust, faith, hope, and knowing are the foundations of love, because I was making sure, this feels right to me, even though it makes no sense, so I'm going to follow it. And in that, my light was showing me where to go next, right? And that's when I felt almost more magical.
But that's why, magic and love are so nice together. And that marriage is so beautiful because all that power that drives that magic, we really don't even understand desire until we understand love. You can't really know what you desire until you get to love. Isn't that interesting if you think about it that way? And this is what can be really challenging, though. As we said, I think so much about how at the moment, there's still a lot of conversation around conventional, traditional relationships, how you land the person, how you behave on the first couple of dates, curating profiles, etc. That very superficial approach, and it is superficial. It might come from a really sincere place, and this is not a criticism at all, but we are still scratching the surface of our identities when we're coming at our lives from lowercase L love versus capital L love. And I'm very aware that as we're having this conversation, this might sound a bit lofty. But I go back to a previous episode in the season where we're really just, not everyone's going to get there. Some people just might be afraid to take that leap. You never know. But one of the reasons why we are doing this, and I don't believe this is wasting our breath, is it's worked for you, but it's also about these younger generations and for people to understand why there is such a discrepancy and a difference in how younger people are approaching relationship and their lives versus how we've always done it and how it's always been done.
It just depends what you want, right? Like for me, what I desire is connection. For someone else, what they might desire, hence maybe there's 18 episodes on gold digging, what they might desire is financial stability. Yeah. Or...
they might deeply want it, but desire is born out of a deeper consciousness. When we tap into our desires truly, where it is at the behest of our magic, as in, I desire this so much and I'm so connected to myself that I know I can magic this as well, that this is, I'm operating from that marriage of love and magic. You're looking at higher consciousness or divine or God consciousness.
But just to add, higher consciousness and divine consciousness, God consciousness, all the consciousnesses, also know that you cannot manipulate another.
You keep wanting to say that.
I keep saying it.
I had to keep reminding you for like a couple of years. There was like a lot of that. Like,
no, I know.
Yeah, just remember.
No, and it's true. But the reason why I say it again here is because, and that's where fate comes in.
Yeah.
Because if it's meant to be, then it really will be.
Yeah.
That deep desire consciousness knows if I can choose myself, it's possible for someone else to choose me too. So that fear around not being chosen is greatly diminished.
I
I'm done now.
That caveat. You're like, I just needed to work that in there. And none of this is a process that is impossible. And that is the whole purpose behind this podcast and our books is this is not something that is out of reach as much as the words like divine and God consciousness might put people off.
No, I guess that's why I'm here.
Precisely. You know,
to translate you into normal words.
It all boils down to oneness consciousness, which is really, can you just heal your shit already? That's it.
And that's why I love so much about what we've done and our books, and not just to like throw a mini party for me, but I will for a second and say the books, and you know, and sometimes I really take the piss out of guidance for here is an episode on a minutia bit, you know, but actually the way we've structured unwittingly our work is that it is a step-by-step process so that you don't just get the basic principles about spirituality, but you also understand the mechanics. You don't need anyone else to facilitate that spirituality for you. Because if you can understand the mechanics behind something, it makes everything clearer. And I like that because it feels that even though you use lofty words and then I use extremely dumbed down words and then somehow we land in the middle, effectively what we're saying is all you have to do is listen to yourself. Find out by living your life in that way that you are good enough to make choices for yourself. And in doing so, find out how powerful you really are, because you can also see how you made yourself powerless for so long. And once you know how powerful you really are, tap into what you really desire, which is a full-bodied awareness of it, whatever excites you. And for the simplest version is, you know how you feel when you're turned on? Apply that to non-sexual stuff too. And know that if you can get from a place of nothing is going right to I can do this, then you can do anything. That's it.
Yeah. And while it sounds simple, we know that it's not easy, but it is quite simple. And that's what's important, because most people will aim to somehow skirt or bypass as much healing as they can.
Of course, normal.
It's understandable. Everybody wants a shortcut.
But we're giving the shortcut. That's the thing that I find, like, if you want to understand the mechanics behind it, if separation teaches you cannot make choices on your own, and then you start making choices, then you're literally undoing it. And sure, I could spend years navel gazing about, you know, what daddy didn't do, what mummy didn't do, what the child in my school didn't do, what the boy my first kiss didn't do, like my exes didn't do. I could make myself the perpetual victim of my life. I could. And I could have every single click of, oh, that dot connects to that dot, connects to that dot, and that's why. But the more I play in that, the more I play in the idea that I'm still broken and I still need fixing. When the truth is, I never needed fixing. I was never broken. I just believed I was. Yeah. So all we're really rewiring is our belief that we weren't good enough, that we couldn't.
But that belief runs so deep that the difference isn't a shift in mindset fixes everything.
Because if you're coming from something from the mind, you are negating your three other bodies. And when we discussed this, the physical body episode in a couple of episodes ago, it was really, mind-blowing for me in many ways, because I've always negated mine.
And I actually found it quite meaningful. And I don't often find our episodes about the physical body, they don't land for me in the same way as that one did.
When something feels like something to us, that makes it our truth, right? So you can tell your mind over and over again, do this, do this, do this. But if it doesn't feel like it, then we're not showing up as the most beautiful person in the room, right? And I think that's why it's not about a mindset shift. It's about a consciousness shift. And that can only happen when we're living our lives and allowing those pieces to untangle, which is why we've said many times before, follow your heart. You'll heal something old and learn something new.
Very much. And so when we're trying to use magic, or, because magic, again, as we said, the reason why there's always going to be multiple benefits to something we do, because we do know that the longer we've worked with guidance, the more we've understood there's a level of efficiency we don't appreciate until much later. And as they've shared is, as manifestation stops working, as consciousness expands and people start to grow out of it, the movement will be toward magic.
Yes.
Or what people will believe is magic. What happens is that if people, much like the way they've used manifestation, try to approach magic as a way to bypass their karma or their uncomfortable realities, what's going to happen is if you're still dominated by your ego, you're not really going to be magicking anything. You've only really just reformatted and found a way to repackage manifestation and law of attraction.
Yeah. If you wrote down everything and the exact right person or the exact right job walked into your life, my best guess is you saw the next step on your fate. You didn't ask for it and it was delivered. You saw something that was already coming and you pulled it towards you. That's how powerful you are. Mm-hmm. Manifestation isn't providing you with those things. It's showing you how powerful you are. And the high and the excitement that you're attributing to something, a process, is actually a high in excitement that you should be attributing to yourself, number one. Second of all, if you're not, and we said this in, I think, season 1, when it comes to manifestation, if you really desire something, and you could desire, like, there are things I desired in my karma that I still desire now, just not in the same way, right? But overarching, they were the same. What you might end up experiencing, and what you will naturally actually, I believe, experience, are not the ways in which you're holding yourself back from getting it, but the ways you're disconnected from you're disconnected from yourself so that you cannot enjoy it once it's arrived, once it's that point in your fate. And sometimes we just have to live our lives and experience things as we do to become the person who is able to experience that too. So it's not about someone providing something to you. It's about becoming the person who can create it, experience it, magic the opportunities for it, any of those things, right? That's actually very different. And so for me, the reason why LOA will stop, or manifestation, or however you want to call it, will stop being effective, rather than also just consciousness is rising and so you don't really need it or whatever else. Or you're seeing other people magicking these huge things and you're like, well, all I got was like, I don't know, like a discount sometimes. Is that how much of it is actually purpose, right? If you're meant to do something or you're meant to learn something which is going to complement your purpose, it will be easy. That's not manifestation, that's purpose. If you're bringing something in or you're seeing something and then it appears, that's not manifestation, that's you being able to see your fate and your destiny, which we've discussed before is very possible, at least one step ahead, if not more, right? And that's also not including the gifts that you might have, latent or otherwise. So what ends up happening when we, even if we're not using manifestation, but we think we are naturally capping our power on what we think manifestation will provide us. Right? Because once you're able to see, actually, I can see further along in my fate and I saw this was coming and it did, that's more power to you. That's more trust in yourself. That's more faith in yourself. That's more momentum to keep going. But if you're like, something else delivered to me, that's still stuck in old ideas of God bestows and God is not me.
Yes.
So yes, it can seem amazing that I wrote this list and I set it on fire and on the full moon, it came into my life. But isn't it way more amazing to be that I'm that powerful that I saw what was coming? And by just living my life, I allowed it to enter? Yeah. Isn't that better?
And how cool is it when I find myself in certain circumstances and I know that there's something deep down that I really want to experience?
When you start living that way, you can start to really appreciate how much more there is to life than we can see. Because the reason why I think so many people go to manifestation is twofold. One, we just want what we want. Fair. Two, on some level, a lot of us know that there's something bigger than us out there. Even the biggest skeptics around will, I've heard them say words like, fate and destiny. Like we all, whether you're superstitious, whether you wear a lucky jersey, there is an inherent knowing within us that there could be something bigger than us out there. Right? So when we turn to manifestation, it kind of does both those things at once. It helps us with our faith of the outside universe bestowing shit upon us. And it also gives us what we want. Or so we think. But imagine if you are able to see it from another perspective, you realize that you wrote all the things you really desired for yourself. You saw them, you brought them in to experience them, and you are that powerful thing that you were looking for outside of yourself. That's when you become untouchable.
Thank you for listening. For more information, articles, and inspiration, find us at karmasmybitch.com and at karmasmybitch.insta.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.